All right.
We're live. Hello.
We are live.
Welcome to the Seed to Sprout Homestead and Health podcast. I'm Jason.
My name is Hannah.
And today we don't know what we're going to talk about. But we had a couple ideas just floating around. Trying to make things a little bit more organic. But a little, I guess, less structured. Still structured, but a little bit more organic. Controlled chaos, you know.
Yeah,
I think that's the idea.
We realized that we never truly know what we're gonna get into for the week and how that's gonna go.
No.
We don't make organized plans for the homestead itself. Sometimes we just get random whim ideas.
Well, and even this morning, Hannah had asked me, well, what's your plan for today? I was just like, well, I want to do this and this and that and this and that. And there's a lot of projects. So I guess one of the things that we can discuss is like what's going on lately at the homestead. We didn't do a podcast last week because Hannah wasn't feeling well. And then this week, like, luckily, I'm feeling better today, but I'm sipping some mint tea. I'm going to try to make a video on that later.
Minty.
Of harvesting the mint, putting in tea. This tea that I'm drinking right now isn't actually harvested from our garden, because we don't have any. You can make like fresh leaf tea, or you can dry the leaves and then make tea that way. And there's pros and cons to each. So we don't have any dried harvested mint from our garden, but we do have mint growing in like 2 or 3 different places in the garden. So I'll probably make a video just going and harvesting that and making tea with that later on too. But the stuff, I guess, to get into the projects that we're kind of needing to be done and wanting to be done right now at the homestead. One of them being the cold frame. So we might get some slack for this, which is fine. But we greenhouse material on top, whether it be plastic or glass or whatever, or you can even use like old windows and do the same with that. And then you just, put it on some kind of hinge, and then so you're able to open and close the top, and you're able to grow during the colder seasons because it just traps the heat through the greenhouse gas capture. And so the way some there's a million different ways to do it, but sometimes people will use hay bales, and they'll just put like hay bales in they'll in a square, and then they'll put their whatever they're going to use as their covering on top. They'll put soil on the inside, and then they'll grow their little seedling starts or whatever in there. And me and Hannah were talking about it, and hay is kind of expensive, but we've been chopping weeds, and we've been kind of like putting them in a pile and burning them, and we're able to save the ash for either a soil amendment or, whenever we end up getting chickens, we can save some of it so they can dust bathe, and that suffocates mites and stuff like that they sometimes have problems with. And the idea is, instead of going and buying hay bales, the idea of homesteading or self-sufficiency is being able to utilize what you already have on hand. And especially because it's the holiday season right now, money is being spent like elsewhere. And so we're trying to be thrifty with what we have, and we have this big old pile of weeds. So we're going to arrange that into basically the 4 walls of our what's going to be our cold frame, and then we're going to put a piece of pallet wood on top, and then we have, from one of our other podcasts, you've seen the greenhouse that got demolished by the wind. We have some of those panels left, and we're going to drill those, we're going to bolt those into the top of the pallet wood, and then use that, so that way the wind can't come underneath and rip it apart and stuff. So It's the first time that we're going to do something like this, and I can understand where some of the controversy is going to lie. I can already foresee, whenever we make a video on it, I can already foresee comments being like, well, you're just watering the weed seeds, and then, the weeds are going to grow in your cold frame, and then this is just a horrible idea, and like all this other stuff. Which is fine. You're welcome to your opinions, but we're going to try it anyway, and then we're going to see what happens. And if it turns out to be a disaster, then it turns out to be a disaster, and that's fine, and we learn from it.
We'll just be the ones to figure that out for you, I guess.
Yeah, but also at the same time, like if we're germinating the weed seeds in an isolated area, then we know exactly where those are at, because they're already germinating all around the property anyway. So bringing them to an isolated area and having them actually germinate in softer soil than what we have on our property, just compacted sand, sometimes, unless there's like a heavy like downpour and it just drenches the sandy soil, it's difficult to get those weeds up by the root. So this might actually be an easier way to eradicate them, in that way. But we'll see what happens. If it's a failure, that's cool. 99% of what you do in a homestead is going to be just learning from your challenges. So
My dad was being super encouraging the other day. I was on the phone with my mom, and he came in and chimed in, and we somehow got to talking about weeds. And he was just being real encouraging. He's like, yeah, after you just keep on removing them, and then after a few years they'll stop coming back. And I was like, yeah. I was like, it's a lot of space, and we'll get there with it. But
yeah,
then he started talking about like my grandma's house, because he used to do a lot of the maintenance for my grandparents as they got older, and that was like the land the lot itself was more than an acre. So I think like the yard itself was an acre,
yeah,
from what I remember. And it was like something that I remember helping with when I was a kid, like when I was like our kids' ages. We used to go maintain, and she had like a lot of pine trees. So
yeah,
every year we'd get the pine needles, the pine needle drop. We'd go
yeah.
rake her pine needles for her, and then she'd come up, she'd give me and my brother each like $20 for helping.
Nice. Yeah, and that's I was having a conversation the other day, Friday actually, went out to lunch with my boss, and the my lab manager, um, I was having a conversation with him and his partner about like about people that rake. I'm not saying this is what you did, but like about people that it just reminded me though, people that rake up their leaves to put them in plastic bags to throw them in the trash can. Like nothing bothers me more than that. As like, dude, you're essentially getting rid of free mulch, free organic matter. If you think about it, like the tree essentially feeds itself because, you have, and then if you think about it from like a permaculture, standpoint as well, it makes sense because it closes the loop on the system. But you have the tree that's growing, and then it loses its leaves. The leaves break back down and recycle those nutrients back into the soil, feeding the tree so it can do it again. You don't have to put synthetic fertilizer in the forest floor because the creatures of the forest that break the stuff down do it for you. And as a matter of fact, there was so we posted this video on a sweet potato harvest, and it had this isopod on it, otherwise like known as a roly poly. It was like a little bit of a different, I don't know what species it was, but it was a little bit of a different one. But there was a comment we got about it being bad for the garden, and the issue is that it's not really bad for the garden. Like the isopods, like yes, they might munch on some seedlings and some roots and all that stuff, but primarily they're just going to be breaking down any of the organic matter, the dead and decaying organic matter that recycles those nutrients back into the soil and thus feeds the plants. And I'm telling you, if you would have seen the soil that we planted the sweet potatoes in originally, very sandy soil, very low on organic matter, I think we might have added some compost, but I don't remember. I don't think we did. I think we just dug the hole and put the sweet potato in. And when we got the harvest, I went out, and the sweet potato vine is real cold sensitive, and so it dies in the cold. And I was looking at it, and it was like fully dead. So I was like, okay, well, like, let's just pull it and see if we can harvest anything. And I ended up pulling it, and I ended up harvesting like a good amount of sweet potatoes. So clearly, like, that isopod was not doing anything bad in that soil, because we got a good amount of sweet potato harvest. And I'm not knocking the person that commented or anything like that. I'm just, explaining to like a broader audience that if you find roly-polies in your soil, or like any kind of isopods in your soil, they're most likely doing more good than harm. So leave them. If you want my humble opinion, we put them in our compost, even just because they help break down like the dead and decaying organic matter, mostly leaves, sometimes like fruits and stuff like that, but it's mostly going to be leaves. And like,
Yeah. Well, and it's really funny because if you're in like the reptile community and you're building terrariums that replicate the environment of the animal, a lot of times the decomposers that you're going to have in that setup is roly-polies, and you
yeah,
have live plants. And like, this is something that I did when we had a snake, like before he had passed, and his enclosure was bioactive. So we had isopods in there, we had living plants in there. It was its own little rainforest ecosystem,
yeah,
essentially. And we had no problem keeping plants alive in a small terrarium environment with a lot of isopods.
yeah,
So it's like, if isopods were going to be an issue in an environment as big as the one that we have, we would have seen some kind of issue in the plant life inside the terrarium, which is a very small environment with a very large population of isopods.
yeah. Yeah, so, and we just, we've talked about before, just kind of letting nature take its course, unless there's a physical, maybe not even physical, but any kind of boundary that we set that's being crossed. So, we do, like I said, we do chop our weeds and rake them up, and the point in that is that, like, the weeds that we're chopping and raking up, like, they have crossed a boundary because they're mostly goat heads. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're getting some amaranth in there every once in a while, too, but like, it's the goat heads that, honestly, if they didn't produce the spiny seeds, I would just leave them alone. I don't really care. But
Well, there's certain safety features that we have to think about when it comes to having a whole little over half an acre that you can't see the ground in because the weeds are too tall. Like, one,
yeah,
they
rattlesnakes.
yeah, one is like rattlesnakes. Like, it's a big safety thing, and we live in an area where we could very easily get rattlesnakes. So
Yeah,
we have animals, we have kids, so we have to keep the brush under control a little bit. And then the other thing is, like, we noticed with our pumpkin patch this year, so we really thought the amaranth would help shade it, but it kind of just took all the nutrients, and like, the pumpkins weren't super successful either.
yeah, they just kind of got out of control. And
Yeah.
again, like, amaranth isn't inherently bad, but you also want to there's also, I don't want to say too much of a good thing, because that also is kind of counterintuitive, because amaranth, I guess, depending on your perspective, could be a good thing or a bad thing, because it has a really deep taproot, and so, like, it can bring some of those nutrients to the surface of the soil. But if it's using those nutrients itself, then it's just like, okay, well, what's kind of the point? If it's competing for other things. But in terms of uses for humans, it's a really good plant, and it's a toss up, and that's why we try to maintain it without eradicating it. The goat heads, we can eradicate those, and I'll have no problem eradicating the goat heads. But
Now that it's dry, it's so awful. Like,
yeah, but
your shoes no longer have shoe on the bottom once you walk through the yard. It's just straight
yeah,
goat
and then
heads.
you walk up the steps, and so just like scratches. But and again, we have a propane blowtorch, but it's too dry out here at the moment to consider using it without, you know, throwing caution to the wind that we're going to light everything else on fire. So, you know, at this point we have to like hoe things, which is fine. It's kind of a pain to do on 6 cents of an acre, but it's not that bad. Sorry, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
But like we were under the impression too, or like we are under the impression that when we first got this this property, it was fairly barren. So we're pretty sure that the people that sold us the property had used some kind of herbicide on it, and that's what had made it barren at the beginning. So the idea of keeping the amaranth this year especially and letting it overgrow and take over, it really helped with the soil, I think. So having the extra amaranth wasn't necessarily bad for our soil environment, I don't think. He's coming back. He had to blow his nose. So I was just saying that the amount of amaranth that we were growing just and keeping this year was probably a good thing, because it helped with the fact that the soil had been like not so great because they probably used herbicides at the beginning.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that, folks. I getting over being a little sick, so you'll have to excuse me. But yeah, the I don't know. It's good. You know, we have a lot of when we moved into this property, it was barren. There's nothing growing at all. Like I came and controlled some weeds and whatnot, but weeds are opportunistic, so they're gonna take any little piece of barren land or any little crack in the sidewalk or whatever, and they're gonna grow, you know, because they're gonna take opportunity of whatever they're given, essentially, even with like the bare minimum soil, the bare minimum moisture, and like all this other stuff. So when you have a barren land, like we have, we're building it up, but it takes a while to build that up.
Yeah.
And if we could just get like, you know, if we had the money to just like bring in dump trucks full of like compost and things, and then just spread it throughout the entire land, like that would be one way to be that would be one way to go about doing like building our soil back up. So there are things that people do that they think try to kind of help with that. So people will lay things like the plastic landscape fabric, and stuff like that, which I'm not a huge fan of. We do it at work. In one of the fields, it's a microplot, so it's basically a pot system. So it's kind of like gives you the best of both worlds, from greenhouse to field. It just it's kind of an in between the greenhouse and actual field research, but we lay landscape fabric down because that's just the protocol. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's also not my protocol, you know. So it's not something that I can really like combat against. But on our own homestead, that's something that we have 100%. You know, authority to say, well, we don't want to do that. Like laying down plastic landscape fabric in just to try to like control weeds. I don't know, and the fact that, in my opinion, it doesn't really do the best job either. Like, it's expensive. The weeds still find a way to poke through, and then especially if you have like we have feral cats and stuff, if they're like ripping the stuff up, I don't know. In my opinion, like cover crops might be a better alternative, and then you can just like you can terminate the cover crops. They put nutrients back into the soil. they keep the soil shaded, basically, in times where nothing else is growing. So if you don't know what a cover crop is, it's basically you have your main crop, and then you have cover crops such as like winter peas that'll fix nitrogen back in the soil, or clover, which also coincidentally fixes nitrogen back into the soil. But then you have other things like perennial ryegrass and stuff like that that you can use, or like buckwheat you can use as a cover crop. So it shades the soil. Some people like to till it back in. There's a debate on till versus no till farming right now, and I'm not a huge fan of tilling, or at least minimum tillage, because obviously like we still dig holes and we still put the plants in those holes. I like to kind of build up the soil instead of going down in the soil, but that hasn't been very it hasn't been very successful, and I think it's because like of the erosion factor, because the wind will come, the rain will come in the monsoon season. If you're building up the soil without, yeah, I mean obviously you loosen the soil underneath, and then you can put the plant, and then you can build up the soil around it. But with the amount of erosion that happens, especially in the dry, arid, windy climate, it's not really like the best method.
Hasn't worked out for us yet.
No, and it will, like, eventually in the future when our soil actually builds up. But again, we don't have any trees or anything that like are shedding enough leaves to actually like break down and compost into the soil. So we have compost piles, and we can build up our soil that way, just adding compost to we can either spread it as like a mulch, or we can add it as like an amendment, and it seems to work fairly well, either way. So, but, we'll, one of the things I want to invest in is a broad fork. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those.
Mm-mm.
So it's basically like, it's got these tines, right? It's got like these 4 tines, and they just go like straight down. They're kind of like knives, and then instead of digging a hole where you're turning the bottom soil up to the top, you use a broad fork. You just like, it's got these like 2 handles, and then you just like shove it in the soil, and then you just like step on it, and it penetrates into the soil, and then you just kind of like you like pull it back, and it loosens the soil without turning it over.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And that's something that is worth investing in. They don't sell any like in store for whatever reason, so it's something that we'd have to like order. But
it's more specialty.
It's basically like you're still tilling, but you're not. So it's minimum. It's, I don't know, it would be either considered minimum tillage, probably not no-till, because you're still working the soil, but you're not. The problem with tilling and like turning the soil over is you're exposing the fresh soil to the surface of your lot, and therefore the environment, which is going to degrade that soil over time. And if you just leave that soil alone and don't turn it over, then you still have that buildup of the microbial community and the microbiome, all the little creatures, microscopic creatures that are, attached to that soil, and that whatever roots are grown in there and stuff like that. So one of the ways to get around that but still have good soil to work with is by using something like a broad fork.
Oh, that'd be really cool then.
So, yeah, I think that's one of the purchase items that, we're interested in investing in for sure.
Speaking of, like, plans and investing, we could go over our list. Our list of future projects that we have in mind.
Yeah. What?
The biggest one probably being the Wallapini.
So if you don't know what Wallapini is, I've been talking a lot, so I'll let you explain.
Oh no, that's okay. One of the things that we've been considering. So we did talk a lot about our failed greenhouse. And
Yeah.
for anybody that's watching
Sad
live,
face.
yes, sad face. For anybody that's watching live, either through Facebook over here, hi guys, or we have Twitch and YouTube from this angle over here. So anybody that's watching live, if you have questions, we are definitely more than willing to do some Q&A along the line. So, or if you have any ideas to pitch in here, because we are brainstorming ourselves about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So we had that failed greenhouse, and it was just the southwest winds. We don't have a lot of coverage from the winds, so that wasn't it didn't end up being nearly as sturdy as we were hoping it would be in regards to just being able to handle our weather. Like we said on the last podcast that we talked about it was a good greenhouse.
Yeah.
It just wasn't good for us. It wasn't good for the area. Even in the backyard with the coverage that it had.
And even if we did fasten it down, it still wouldn't have been. There's too many. That plastic was just not good.
It caught in the wind like a sail,
Yeah.
and the whole building was just gonna fly off.
Yeah.
So it wasn't good for us. It wasn't good for our setup. But the more that we've brainstormed, the more that it's looking like a Wallapini style greenhouse would be the best for our area. We get pretty extreme hot temperatures.
Yeah.
In the summertime, but not nearly as extreme as somewhere like Phoenix. So it's mild compared to that.
Yeah, and if you don't know what a Wallapini greenhouse is, it's basically an underground greenhouse, and I think we had talked about this on one of the podcasts, but you get like an excavator and you dig out whatever the amount that you want your greenhouse to be. You ideally, you want to dig about 6 to 8 feet deep because you want to have walking room and things like that. I'm 6 feet tall, so, digging a little bit, like 7 to 8 feet, I think would be ideal, like a good idea. And then you can have it however big you want it, depending on the amount of space that you have. We were talking originally about an 8 by 12, an 8 foot by 12 foot, with a 7 foot to 8 foot depth. But we more recently were talking about, what was it? What was
Maybe
this, like 25 by 50?
I think it was like 25 by 40 or something like that.
Because that would be a good amount. And what you do is you excavate the ground, you dig out, your depth, and then you kind of just like hollow it out on the inside. You make a little walkway down, so you have some kind of slope.
You grade it with your excavator.
Yeah, so you make like this walkway down, and then you just build a frame on top that you can put like greenhouse glass or plastics over. And then what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to keep the same temperature year round, because it's underground, which means that's conducive for year-round growing, but it's also a greenhouse, so you might be able to alter some conditions, especially if we did 25 by 40 or 25 by 50, we could segment it.
Which is like what I was thinking of doing. Oh, yeah. I was thinking about like a different temperature controlled area that doesn't have as much direct light from the sunroof paneling. That's more of like a root cellar.
Well, and the good news too is that like we can either put green shade cloth over, like if it ends up not working out the way we want it to, and it still gets too hot down there, we can either put greenhouse shade cloth over, or we can like paint a reflective white coat on the plastic or the glass. And we can use recycled windows. We have the greenhouse plastic, but if it's something that we're worried about in terms of the wind, it might be a better idea to just go scavenge some old windows and use those instead.
That would make the project significantly less expensive, because the greenhouse roofing, like the corrugated roofing that you were talking about, would be one of the biggest expenses. That and like the equipment rental, I think.
Yeah, and the good news is like my sister and sister-in-law, they're planning to rent equipment to remove gravel from their front yard, and you can pay however much a day to get an excavator. They'll drop it off to you. They'll pick it back up. So it's like, okay, well, we could just share that expense. And then we talk about all the time how Homestead is great, but what really makes it work is community and engagement from everyone. Like, if I was trying to run this homestead by myself, or if Hannah was trying to run this homestead by herself with no help from, the other or the kids or anything like that, when it comes to feeding the animals and taking care of the weeds and taking care of like the animals like messes, plus cleaning the house and and cooking and doing everything that we need to do, getting the kids to school, it's a very difficult thing to do. So if you are interested in starting a homestead and you want to make the best success out of it, one of the things that will help you in the long run is by inviting the community that you know and trust to help you, with that homestead. You could even do some barter and trade kind of stuff. I haven't been taken up on the offer yet, but I've reached out to people that are doing their own work. They might not be running a homestead or anything per se, but they're doing their own work, and I'll offer to go help them. Where I'm just like, well, you don't have to pay me. Like, I want to learn, how to do these things, and in turn, like, I don't expect them to say, like, I don't go in with the expectation of like, well, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's like, well, no, I'll scratch your back, and at the same time I'm scratching mine because I'm learning something. And then generally what comes with that by default is the people that you reach out to are going to be like, yeah, let me know if you need help on your property too. I'll be happy to come help you out.
It's a village mindset. It's a community mindset. It's like something that I noticed about our culture, and I'm sure like a lot of people have noticed this about our culture, but we've lost a lot of trust in one another. It's like there's more trust in a system that's being followed rather than the direct people within the community. And it's like the system itself has caused this mistrust because the focus is more on how you appear to other people and not who you are to other people.
And also like who's out to get you. Like, I think
it's a huge mentality.
I think one of the key players in that is the fact that we're just consistently exposed to information. Like in our parents' day and age, before the internet and all that stuff was released to the public, they got their information from, they watch the news before they go to work, and then they get whatever information they find on the news or listen to on the radio, and then that's it. But they're not like every 5 seconds, you open Facebook and it's just like, and you can slowly try to alter your algorithm, but they'll still give you ads and stuff, and it's just like, okay, well, I'm kind of tired of seeing like, okay, like this homicide and this like kidnapping and this child abuse charge and this and I'm just like, man,
it shows you all the evil.
Well, and that's the thing, is that like we as humans, like, I'm no psychologist, but what I do know about psychology is we're attracted to that kind of stuff. And again, we're attracted to it because it's dangerous, and our brains have been evolutionarily hardwired to look to scout for danger, which is not a bad thing. Like, it's not good to be paranoid, but it is a good idea to be aware of what's going on around you, like, obviously. But it's the same thing where it's just like, man, I can't trust anybody because you see all of this negativity on the news, but then you don't see any positivity. And I get it, the news, like, they have to have their ratings, they have to have people watching it. People don't like feel-good stories, like, as
not
much
enough.
as not as much as they like the drama. And and you can see that in just like television programming too. People watch things like The Bachelorette and whatnot, and even though like some of those programs are fake, and some like people will know that they're fake, they still like it, they still watch it because it's still dramatic,
it's entertaining.
And again, I'm not knocking those people or anything. I'm just saying that the news has a way of giving us the stories that make us scared of each other and divide us more than we should be divided. And like the golden rule, you know, whether you're religious or not, like the golden rule is like, you know, you want to treat others the way that you want to be treated. And like basically if someone's kind to you, then just be kind back. It's not super complicated.
Well, and there's just been this cultural shift. I mean, then this has been happening for a very long time, but there's been a cultural shift that has moved from connection to admiration. So it's like if
Yeah.
I'm not following this trend, then I'm not likable. I'm
Yeah.
not somebody that somebody wants to talk to or admire. It's about how many followers you have, what kind of friends you have, and like how popular they are in social media. It's like it's become the high school hell for the entire world, essentially. It's just these standards, and there's celebrity standards that are involved in this.
Well, and we've talked about that too, where it's just like, okay, well, you know, we could post some nonsense content, you know, and especially now being like we're creating content, which is kind of a new world, you know, for both of us. But we're creating content, but we're sticking to our roots. We could easily just follow other people's formulas and be like, well, this got a lot of views and a lot of likes on this person's channel. It's just like, and sometimes that's not a bad thing to do, you know, like because, but as long as it stays within the walls of your morals and you're not selling yourself to do something just because you think somebody else is going to like it. Sometimes people have good formulas and it's just like, oh, well, you know, this person had a good idea and, you know, I'm not going to copy their idea 100%, but I'm going to use it to like as an inspiration to like because I mean when you first start creating content, like the one thing that you want to keep in mind is what kind of content draws me in, and then you essentially like kind of base your formula on whatever kind of content draws you into.
Because it's going to be very particular to your energy and your niche, and there are certain platforms like TikTok is one of them where the algorithm has recently changed in a way that favors original content over
Yeah.
the overuse of trends. So if
Which is good.
it is it's a step in the right direction. So TikTok is, from what I've gathered, favoring authenticity. So if you post multiple videos, let's say you're posting every single day, but you're using the same 5 hashtags, and TikTok's one of those that only allows you to have 5
Instagram now too.
5 hashtags
You can
max.
only have five hashtags on Instagram too.
So
They just changed it.
so Instagram must be joining in with this kind of flow
Yeah.
that TikTok is, and YouTube's already been on that flow, and I think that might be the example. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
if you're posting the same 5 hashtags on every single video, you're gonna get lost in the algorithm because TikTok is registering it as reused and recycled content, and they
Yeah.
want things that are authentic and fresh now.
Well, and like the danger, you know, of the doing things just for likes and stuff like that, but like morally like just selling yourself out is that then you get this uptick in these videos that are like, you know, prank videos, but they're really just harassment videos. Or like if we just decided to, you know, like if we just decided to pull quote unquote pranks like on our kids and then just like exploit them for our own benefit because we know people are going to watch and people are going to like and people are going to, you know, it's controversial because some people are going to be mad about it, some people aren't going to care, you know, whatever. We got something?
Yeah. Oh, jeez. I think your friend is here.
Oh, hey Don, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
We
Welcome.
we have not well, you have not officially met Hannah still technically to this day, but this is her. But yeah, that's my buddy. We used to go well, we went shooting. We went shooting together like a few times. We used to go like work out and stuff like that. You know, quite a bit at Anytime Fitness down there in Alamogordo. But yeah, so thanks for watching, Don. It's good to see you, or see ya.
See ya, saw ya.
But yeah, so uh, that's part of the issue too. Is again, like when you're doing things for likes and for watches and stuff like that, you might, post some controversial content. You might post stuff that like you don't really actually agree with, and you're just doing it to get the likes and the views. And for us, it's just like, well, we would much rather be organic. I would much rather have, you know 70 subscribers that builds up maybe like 4 or 5 subscribers at a time, but post like real content that we actually agree with, as opposed to having like 1 million followers overnight because we posted something that we didn't actually agree with, or that exploited like our kids, or we went out and humiliated someone, or recorded ourselves giving, like a homeless person a happy meal, just, not because we like actually cared about what
Just
what they needed, but
just the clout.
yeah, no, it is. So social media and creating content can be dangerous if you don't do it correctly, and you fall into the trap of because it is like they call it a dopamine hit, but I don't remember what it actually is, because scientifically speaking, like, it's not actually a dopamine hit whenever you get likes and views and stuff on your.
It's validation. I know that
Yeah.
it can be psychologically damaging, and this is for any content creator. I think is that it's very easy to get caught up in it, and we personally have multiple channels.
Yeah.
So we do this one from seed to sprout. This is where we focus all of our homesteading and gardening knowledge and that type of energy. And then we also have music channels separately, and we don't put
Yeah.
as much focus into those, but we're both musicians, and as we find the time, we try to put focus into that as well. And then we have Seed to Strength, which is martial arts and fitness related. And then I have, personally, I have a tarot readings and intuitive reading page as well. So we have a lot of platforms that we're posting on,
Yeah.
and it would be especially easy for us to get caught up with it, obsessed with it, consumed by it, because it's like, especially when you start doing well.
Well, and that's the thing, is like we're doing things that we would normally do whether we're recording them or not. You know what I mean? Like, we just happen to be recording them, and that's the other thing. Like, if you're ever thinking about doing content creation, one of the things that you have to you have to be okay with are the haters. They, if you think about it, like,
Yeah.
the haters are just as good as the people commenting good things on your channel, because they're engaging, and they're, adding, more visibility to your channel by engaging. And it's like, okay, um, you get a lot of haters on pretty much like all platforms. The Homestead platform hasn't been as bad. The MMA platform is a little bit worse. But people, there's criticism, and there's constructive criticism. And criticism is basically saying, like, well, you're not doing this right, and then that's it. And then they don't tell you how to make it better.
It's just like, that looks stupid.
Yeah, and then constructive criticism is like, okay, like, if you've ever been in an art class where you do critiques, someone puts up their painting and you're like, well, that sucks.
That's
and
not
then
constructive.
and then that's it. Like, that's just criticism. It's not constructive. But, they put up their painting and you're like, man, I really like this, but, like, have you thought about blending the paint here to kind of make the shadow, allow the light to pop out more in this particular area of your painting? And that's constructive. We are 100% okay with constructive criticism. But then there's also the internet trolls, the armchair warriors, the people that just want to kind of prove that they know better than you. And you just can't care. You just got to kind of laugh it off. A lot of times we tell those people, hey, thanks for the watch and comment, or I like to redirect myself to their page, especially like in on the MMA page, you know, people will say like, well, you don't know how to do this and you're not doing that right and all this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, well, thanks for, like, you know, let me go to your page so I can learn how to do it properly. Thank you. I appreciate the advice. And then
nine times out of 10.
9 times out of 10, like,
they don't have a page that posts tutorials or
actually,
help or
10 times out of 10 they don't have a page, but like 9 times out of 10 they don't write back.
That's true too. It's usually like it stops there.
Yeah.
And I found that like it's mostly on the martial arts and fitness page. People have opinions about martial arts techniques. People have opinions about fitness techniques and what's best and what isn't best. People are going to have opinions, especially on nutrition. Keto is one of the most controversial topics in nutrition and fitness and
Which
health.
doesn't make any sense because it's been studied for the last century.
It's a therapeutic diet and it doesn't work for everybody, but like I can tell you that it worked for me, and I tried a million things prior to this, but I can almost guarantee, because I mean we haven't experimented, we haven't done this, but I have helped you get through a lot of like weight cuts at this point in our relationship. That including like the last one that had a lot of strength training involved. And putting you on a keto diet would be so detrimental to your progress and your health.
Yeah,
I really don't think that it would be something that would be good for you.
Yeah, and it's because my body's going to respond in a different way. My body doesn't respond to carbohydrates and glucose the same way your body does. Like, your brain gets really excited with carbohydrates and glucose, and it throws you into, you know, seizures.
Migraine, seizures, like my whole life didn't make sense. Like the amount of health issues that I've had and surgeries and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
When it was mitochondrial, it was my energy system from the beginning, and it took one dietary shift to fix pretty much everything.
There's been a lot of there's been a lot of this crazy research into the ketogenic diet, and I was actually listening to some podcasts the other day where they were talking about it, and it was the one I sent you, I believe, but I don't know if you like listened to it fully. And if you did, you probably already know this, but because it's really hard to experiment on humans. You have to go through all these different boards and stuff like that. It's like almost impossible to experiment on humans. So they do experiments on mice instead. And what they did was they took kids that were epileptic that were on ketogenic diets, and then kids that were epileptic that were not on ketogenic diets, and they did a fecal transplant into the mice, into the mice that had epilepsy. The ones that they did the fecal transplant into from the kids that were not on the ketogenic diet, those mice continued to have seizures. The fecal transplant that they did from the ketogenic children into the epileptic mice, their seizures just completely stopped. Just they went into complete remission.
So it has to do with ketones.
It's something in the microbiome of your fecal matter. They do fecal transplants in humans,
yeah,
like, because
absolutely.
There's bacteria like Akkermansia and stuff like that. If you know, Dr. William Lee is always talking about it. But they take people that have high amounts of Akkermansia in their fecal matter, or like the stable amounts or whatever, they can transplant that fecal matter into another person, and that can also help alleviate like a lot of the problems, or even just put things into remission completely.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
And it has something to do with like an overgrowth of like bad bacteria in some people's systems too.
And, like,
that those
yeast and things like that.
Yeah, that those transplants are helpful for.
And that's why, like, you know, it's in your opinion, not in your opinion, in your case, it's not about an unhealthy gut microbiome.
No.
Because you're feeding yourself everything that made your gut microbiome good, but it was your brain's response to carbohydrates and sugars, even if they were from natural sort of like bananas or mangoes.
Yeah. Well, And there has to be something to it because I'm also sensitive to artificial sweeteners. So, like, as somebody that does keto, I can't do monk fruit, stevia, any of the artificial ones either, which I mean, I wouldn't want to touch the artificial sweeteners even if
Well,
I could.
monk fruit isn't, and stevia aren't artificial though.
So like I still can't do those though,
Yeah.
even though they're all natural. And I think the issue, and I was telling Crystal this yesterday, because she's had a really hard time not being able to make me a dessert, and it's made her really sad because she feels like I'm left out. But we're talking about it, and I told her, I was like, I really doubt it's the monk fruit itself, but anytime that you buy monk fruit, it's combined with erythritol, which is
Uh,
a fruit alcohol, and it does something. So even the artificial and alternative sweeteners are something that I can't have. So there is something going on with my system
well,
that has to do with insulin.
and it's one of those two where it's just like, okay, well, would you rather miss out on the one dessert, the one time that people are eating dessert, or would you rather miss out on life because you're having seizures and migraines and stuff?
And it's hard to explain to people that it's difficult. It feels like it should be an easier concept for people to grasp because it's a very extreme thing.
Well,
But
people like their food, man.
nobody seems to have grasped the fact that I am not struggling. Like it's really hard to put into words in a way that people would understand that this is something that like changed my life in a way that would make me never look back, you know?
And I, to play devil's advocate, I guess, in their defense, they have not seen what I've seen because I was with you the entire time. So like me and you and like the kids, like we know, even maybe like less so the kids because they weren't in here like when you're sleeping and like having seizures and sleep paralysis and all that stuff, right? So they might see it as like a, well, you're having a seizure every once in a while, and I'm seeing it as you're having multiple seizures every hour, like, and
Like
that's,
I couldn't walk outside without a walker, and when I
you couldn't
finally
turn on a light without having a seizure if it went on too fast.
yeah, if I turning on the TV,
Or like
just turning on the TV was enough
even
to trigger seizures. The threshold was so low.
or like even closing the door too loud because like the wind catches this door in our bedroom, or like the not the wind but the air from the vents.
The dogs barking, if the dogs would bark randomly and it would frighten me or
Yeah,
like startle me, anything that could
like the
startle
dogs are
me.
always barking randomly.
The kids used a Polaroid camera once,
Yeah,
and it was in a completely different room. It was in the room like outside, but it was just like the flash was so extreme that it like trickled into the room that I was in, and it was enough.
yeah, no, it's like,
And that's like that quality of life is so low, and people don't understand too. Like, yeah, that was 4 months of my life,
well,
right? That seems like that's just 4 months of your life. That's not a big deal, but they didn't see the life that I had
it
before
would have
all
been,
of that.
and it would have been a lot more than 4 months of your life if you hadn't changed anything.
It would have just
It would have
spiraled,
just continued.
or
It got
or
worse.
I'd be on medication by now. But like I had one of those rare circumstances that my neurologist was like, I don't want to try to trigger seizures in you now to
So
figure
that's a
out
good
which
neurologist.
treatment. Yeah, that's a very good neurologist, but she's like, I don't want to trigger seizures in you anymore if you've already found something that's working. She's like, I want to see if this is going to continue to work for you.
And she was even like, hey, in the state of New Mexico, you have to be seizure free for 6 months. In the state of Texas, you have to be seizure free for 3 months. But if you continue to be seizure free by the time January comes, come back and see me, and like our neurologist can write an exception to be like, okay, you can drive again. You've been seizure free for 3 months.
And she was like, we technically don't report anything. Like, we haven't reported anything to anybody on whether or not you could drive. Just responsibly, just
Well,
come
yeah,
see us, you
and
know.
you-
And
and
that's where I'm willing to be. I'm willing to wait until the end of January
yeah,
for my appointment
and
to drive again.
you'd want to do that anyway, because like, you want to make sure that you're just, if you're gonna be cleared to drive after having seizures, like you'd probably want to be professionally cleared because that's very dangerous territory.
Yeah, well, and it's something that'll probably I'm gonna have to start really slow because like the idea of it will be a little scary at first.
Yeah, just taking back roads and
Just practicing
driving
like
in the little outskirts out here and having someone with you, like, for the first however long until you feel comfortable, just kind of doing it on your own. But it's the same kind of deal, like going back to when people kind of don't really quite understand like the ketogenic diet. It's the same kind of people that when you tell them like that you don't drink, and they're just like, well, why? Like, that's weird. And it's just like, nah, if you think about it, what's really weird is the fact that we've gotten accustomed to just going out and having a drink on Friday and Saturday and spending our entire weekend hungover and just poisoning our bodies and making all kinds of like bad decisions. And I'm not like saying I'm some kind of saint or anything like that. Like, I used to drink, and I don't care if people drink. Like, that's your choice. Like, as long as you're not like endangering like your kids or like anybody around you, you're not driving drunk, like, whatever, do what you want to do, like, that's fine. But it's the people that give you that look when you're just like, nah, I don't drink.
Like, oh, are you an alcoholic?
What's
no, I'm not. I'm not an alcoholic. I just for my health.
It's the same kind of people too that like they'll knock you for not eating fast food. I deal with that at work when I'm just my boss will sometimes take us to McDonald's if we're gonna go out of town, and he'll stop. A lot of times he likes to stop at Milagros instead, which is better because then I just get a coffee or whatever. But he'll stop at McDonald's. And I don't even trust the water here, dude. Like, I'm not gonna get it. And then like there was one time where we went there and he was just like, he's all, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, no, dude, I'm good. Like, no thanks. And then he ended up getting like an extra breakfast sandwich on accident. He's all, here, just save it for later. I'm like, okay. So like I just took it, and like even the smell of it just makes me sick. But like I just took it and I just left it on the outside of the lab. I told my lab mates like, hey, I'm not gonna eat this, dude. So have at it. Like,
whoever wants this.
It's just your body gets used to, after a while, like not eating like just food that's not real food. Again, we talk about not every diet is good for everybody, but the one thing, I guess the two kind of diets that I would recommend for everybody, and these come with their own nuances, but one is a whole foods diet, eating like food that's non-processed, or at least very minimally processed, because when you say non-processed, then you're even cutting out steel cut oats, because they're processed minorly because the blade comes and just cuts the oats in half. That's technically processed.
Yeah. It's the term processed is a little bit too general, like it's processed foods.
Ultra processed is what you don't want.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's so much stigma, there's so many arguments in just like the nutrition community. Like I watch a lot of videos on recipes and stuff, and people get a lot of backlash for creating recipes that are healthier, because it's just like, well, just eat the actual Oreos. Why are you making Oreos? Like, yeah. There was one that I saw where it was someone stitching a video of someone that was making homemade Oreos for their family instead of buying them, and they were like making fun of her instead of like, well, like, it's just like, hey, like, if you look at the video, and I would understand if she was in there trying to like say that she was better than everyone else because she was doing it, but she was genuinely like, hey, my family doesn't eat ultra processed food, so they want to enjoy these cookies. So, like, this is kind of what we do. We're not gonna shame you for the decisions that you make for your family, but we're gonna set an example, and we're going to share with you what we do for our family, the difference that it's made, how much healthier we feel. Well, like those are things worth sharing. So we're not here to shame anybody for what they're doing. We're just here to share what we're doing.
And that's the same thing as like, there is, like we were talking about before, like there's gonna be haters, and these are just like a bunch of armchair warriors, and it's ironic when it comes from someone that might be like overweight or morbidly obese or that's given themselves type 2 diabetes, that's making these kinds of comments, because it's just like, well, this is why, like, I'm not eating these Oreos because I'm making them myself, because I can control the ingredients, I can control how much of what goes into it. It's not ultra, like, processed. There's not a bunch of fake food in it and all this stuff. The only time that I can see when it's just like, well, why don't you just eat the real thing, is like the lab grown meat, like the Beyond Burgers. Like, to me, I'm just like, okay, at that point, like, why don't you just eat the real thing, like, or just don't eat meat, like, it's fine to be like a vegetarian and all that stuff. And again, I'm not knocking anybody that decides to do it, but that, in my opinion, if I was a vegetarian and I just, or a vegan or whatever, didn't want to eat meat, I would just not eat meat. I would go
Yeah.
with something like tofu or, something like that, but I wouldn't buy lab grown meat.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea, like, personally.
Well, see, and like the people that comment and make fun of people that do this kind of stuff, they're like, doesn't buy processed food and then processes the food at home herself. Like, they're missing the point of what she was trying to do. But these are people that will say, like, all of these foods are fine in moderation, which, what's your definition of moderation? If your definition of moderation is eating these types of food, as long as it's just once a day instead of like 5 times a day, maybe it's a few times a week, or maybe it's just once in a while. And I think that that's moderation, is like every once in a while, couple times a month, maybe. Like, you don't have to be an extremist if you don't want to be, but you have to be honest with yourself about what moderation is. And then the other thing that I think people need to be honest with themselves about is how they are feeling physically. Do you have gut issues on the norm? Do you have back pain? Like, these are things that don't just hit you when you're 30. These are things that are a reflection of how you're eating.
Yeah.
What you're doing with your body, how much movement you're putting into it, how much stress do you have in your body.
Yeah, see, and that kind of, like, segues into the second point where, the two diets, one would be the whole foods diet that I would just recommend for anybody, but based off of that as well would be an elimination diet, because just because it's whole foods doesn't necessarily mean that your body's going to agree with it. I realize that about carrots and apples myself. I get stomach problems whenever I eat carrots or apples for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the high fiber content, I don't know what it is, and I haven't tried carrots cooked, I haven't tried apples cooked or baked, I haven't tried a variety of carrots, I've only tried the orange ones, but those are even new. Like, the original carrots were like the purple with like the yellow on the
Mm-hmm.
inside and high amounts of anthocyanins and stuff like that. So if you're not feeling good, then, like, first of all, like, you should do the whole foods diet and just eat whatever you can, but like, you don't have to be super strict about it either. It's just like, okay, well, yeah, eat the whole foods diet, like, mostly, but then every once in a while you can have some, like, minimally processed, you know I don't think it's a good idea to ever really have, like, ultra processed food. And it's not going to kill you if you have it like once or twice, but me personally, it's the same as fast food or soda. It's just like, yeah, it's not going to kill you, but it's not a good idea. And then foods that are just like really high in sugar, people might say, well, let's just do sugar in moderation. It's like, well, that's a difficult thing to do also, because your body is like, you get addicted to sugar. And it's crazy because they've actually done a study where they removed the, like, taste of the sugar and put it in, like, I don't remember exactly what the study was, but I remember they put it in something, but they removed the taste of the sugar because they wanted to see if it was like it was like some
It's
double blind
taste
study.
based.
Yeah. Because they thought people were addicted to the sweetness. They're not addicted to the sweetness.
No.
They're addicted to whatever the molecule is, that's in it. And
It's got to be fuel purposes. Your body is designed to store for the winter and to obtain as much easy energy as it possibly can. It's the same reason that we love to drink alcohol. Alcohol is the quickest burning fuel for your body.
There's also and then we can close on this because we've hit our hour a little bit over, but there's also the food companies that decided to tell us that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and the only reason they did that was so they could sell brands like just high sugar cereal that they put a bunch of these isolated like vitamins and stuff, and good source of vitamin C, good source of vitamin E, and all this stuff, but like the sugar counteracts all of that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But they tell us like, yeah, this breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so we can like blast our kids with sugar before sending them to school and then wonder why they don't perform well and everyone's got ADHD. But the
energy crashes.
Well, and evolutionarily speaking, we didn't, when we're in a hunter-gatherer society, like we didn't eat breakfast. We woke up, we hunted on empty stomachs.
Find the breakfast.
We hunted and collected berries on empty stomachs, and then we had to haul all of it back, and then we ate, because our body has been engineered to know how to be efficient, how to burn fat for fuel.
Well, and it's actually more efficient. So that's, I guess when we go into our next podcast, there's not too many people listening live right now, but if you want to jump into the Seed to Strength one with us, we can talk more about nutrition and the logistics of what is happening when your body is using fat for fuel versus carbs for fuel.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're gonna take a little break. We're gonna jump off of this, and we're gonna jump onto the Seed to Strength podcast live. So if you are watching and you want to hear more about that, then follow us on Seed to Strength. So it'll be just like the Seed to Sprout spelling, but it'll be Seed to Strength instead. And then if you're watching on Twitch.
Yeah, and then maybe give us
like 10
5
minutes.
to 10 minutes to get everything ready. So, but
refresh our drinks.
Until then, thank you for tuning in, and we apologize for the sickness. Hopefully it'll be better now. And well, it's already getting better today, which is good. I was kind of out for the count yesterday, but it's good stuff. And then we're gonna continue doing projects on the homestead. We're gonna continue updating you guys on what projects we're doing, giving you guys videos, giving you guys just educational, little bouts of learning on our shorts and our reels and all this other stuff that we're doing on the homestead. So
yeah,
if you guys got any advice or any projects that you might want to see like that are feasible, then you feel free to comment, or any kind of videos you guys would like us to create in the future as well. But until then, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, happy solstice, and we hope you guys have a really good holiday week. Hopefully we will, we might not be back on Sunday. It might be a busier day. So we might try to hop in on a different day instead. We'll see.
Yeah, which is fine. We got work off and all that stuff. So Monday might be the day for the cast instead.